This is section 4.2. It's all about factoring trinomials. This method is probably the biggest one that we do related to factoring, and we will use this for the entire year, for every year that you have remaining in high school and any college classes that you may need to take. This is never going to go away. Okay, so first of all, a quick review of the kinds of factoring that we've already done. Look at number one. I see that it's two terms. They're both perfect squares, so I can use the difference of squares method. It's going to become x plus 10, x minus 10. Number two, it's still only two terms, but they're not perfect squares, so my option would be common factor, and I see that I can take out a common factor of 2x. That means in the parentheses I'm still going to have 4x plus 5. On number three, okay, it's subtraction, but they're not squares, so still only option is common factor. This time all I can take out is a 2. That'll leave me with 6 minus x squared. On number four, two terms, it's subtraction. They're both perfect squares, so I can use my difference of squares method. So 7x plus 4 and 7x minus 4. Number five, again, both of them are squares, so it's going to be 8 plus 3x and 8 minus 3x. And then number six, they're both squares, but notice it's not a difference, and there is no common factor, so in this case there's nothing I can do to factor this, and whenever it can't be factored we say it's prime. Okay, so the two methods that we've used, number one, the first method we learned was common factor. Common factor. Common factor method, remember you can use that for any number of terms, even though the ones up above only had two terms. So just as a reminder, we used common factor on number 2 and number 3, and I think that's it. Okay, and then the other method that we learned was difference of squares. Difference of squares. Let's see, that was if you had two terms. And the two methods there, let's see, we used that on number 1, we used that on number 4, and on number 5. And then we learned, and we didn't practice it up above, but we also learned sum or difference of cubes. And the sum or difference of cubes was if you had two terms. And notice there weren't any examples up above. Of all the factoring methods that we do, that would probably be the least common one that we do. But I wanted to go ahead and do it since it was two terms to show you the difference between if they're squares and if they're cubes. Okay, so the big one for today that we're going to spend quite a bit of time on is related to this next concept. So if I'm going to multiply, right, I would have, in order to multiply, I would have to do FOIL. And so the 2 times 3 would be 6x squared, and then the outer would be the 8x, and then the inner would be 9x, and then the last would be 12. So as a reminder, this was first, outer, inner, and last. And you may remember on these, whenever you multiply using FOIL, it's very common that you can combine the outer and the inner. 8x and 9x is 17x. So I end up with 6x squared. I combine the outer and inner, and then the last was 12. Okay, so notice on this type, when you multiply using FOIL, you ended up with 3 terms. Okay, so today is going to be about What if we start with this? What if we start with 3 terms and we want to work backwards and factor it into the parentheses? Okay, so this method is called trial and error. And yes, it's called trial and error, or some people might call it guess and check. But the thing about this trial and error is, with this method that we're going to use, I'm going to give you some helpful hints so that even though there's lots of options, I'm going to teach you how to choose the best options. And so therefore, most of the time, you're going to get it right on your first trial. Okay, so here's how it works. First of all, when you do your trial and error, you're going to start with, okay, so once you decide that you have 3 terms, right, 3 terms, so you know you're going to use this trial and error method. So the first step is to just write down your parentheses. Okay, so on letter A, I see there's 3 terms, so I automatically write down my 3 parentheses. Okay, the second step is decide on the first, let me back up. Sorry about that. Decide on the signs in each parenthesis based on the last sign in the polynomial. All right, so when I look down here at letter A, I look at the last sign in the polynomial right here. It's a plus. Okay, so here's the idea on that. If that's a plus, if the last sign is a plus, then you know the parentheses have the same sign. If that last sign is a minus, then you know the parentheses have different signs. Okay, so since it's a plus, I know they're the same. So that means these are either both plus or they're both minus. In order to decide what they're the same of, I look at this one. Since that's a plus, that means I know these are both plus. Just to kind of drive this point home, if I look down here at letter C, when I set up my parentheses, I see that the last sign is a plus, but the first sign is a minus. So that means I would say these are the same of minus. So they're both going to be minus. If I look over here at letter F, I set up my parentheses. I see that the last sign is a plus, so they're the same. I notice the first one is a minus, so they're the same of minus. Okay? So what that means is if the last sign is a minus, then they're different. So when I set up my parentheses here, I see that minus, so that automatically means they're different. I don't have to look at that first sign. I automatically put a plus and a minus. On this one, set up my 2 parentheses. As soon as I see that minus, it doesn't matter what the first one is, I automatically put a plus and a minus. Same thing over here, set up my 2 parentheses. As soon as I see that last sign is a minus, it doesn't matter what the first one is, I automatically put a plus and a minus. So you're never going to have to think about whether or not the signs should be plus or minus, the same or different. It's automatic based on that concept that we just talked about. Okay, so the next thing, you're going to place the first term in each parenthesis. The first term in each parenthesis. And the helpful hint is try the smallest or the lowest factors. Let's see, do you want small or low? I'll say here, try the lowest factors. Okay, let me show you what I mean by that. So when I say I'm going to put the first term in each parenthesis, I'm going to decide what goes here and here. And if you think about it, when we did that problem up above, that first term right there came from the F, from the first, meaning multiplying the 2x and the 3x. So that means down here, these terms are going to be whatever multiplies to give you 6x squared. So if you think about it, it might be a 2x and a 3x, or it might be a 6x and a 1x. But remember what I said, how we're going to always start with the lowest terms? So to me, 2 and 3 is lower than 6. So I'm going to start with 2x and 3x. And it doesn't matter which one goes where. You just put 2x in one and 3x in the other. Okay. And then number 4 is place the last term in each parenthesis. And here is the big hint. This is the one you won't find in any textbook anywhere. I don't know of any other teacher who teaches it this way except the teachers who I have taught, and there are plenty of them out there. And here's the hint. When you put that last number in each parenthesis, never have a common factor in either parenthesis. Okay, so let me show you what I mean by that. So I look down here. I know in order to multiply and get these two numbers, it's got to multiply and be 12 because that 12 of the FOIL, right? It comes from the last term. So in order to multiply and get 12, I have lots of options. If you think about it, I'll start low. I'll start with, let's see, it could be 1 times 12. It could be 6 times 2. And it could be 4 times 3. And you won't see me write this out from now on. This is just for us talking out loud. So based on what we talked a minute ago, we always start with the lower number. So my first thing I'm going to try is the 4 and 3. Okay? But when I put those numbers in, do you see if I were to put the 4 right here, do you see that that first parenthesis would have a common factor of 2? That's never going to happen. Never. So that means even though I might try the 4 and the 3, if it's the 4 and 3, I'm definitely going to put the 3 here and the 4 here because neither parenthesis would have a common factor. Okay, so this is my first trial. Now this doesn't guarantee it works. And when I say it works, that means it doesn't guarantee that when this is multiplied out, it's going to equal this. I have to check it. So it's so important to do your check. All right, so in order to check it, you don't have to multiply the whole thing. You don't have to do FOIL and see if you get 6x squared plus 17x plus 12. Because I already know it's going to be 6x squared. That's why I chose the 2x and 3x. And I already know that the last is going to be 12. That's why I chose the 3 and 4. What I don't know, here's the check. I don't know that the outer and inner will give me 17. So when you check, all you have to do is check the O, the outer, and the I, the inner of the FOIL. And the outer and inner is this and this. And you have to make sure when you add your outer and inner, does it give you that middle term of 17? So the outer is 8x and the inner is 9x. Does that equal that middle term of 17? Yes, it does. Now I'm writing a whole lot of stuff down just because you're watching this video and you're seeing this for the first time, and you can't see me pointing, so I'm actually writing it down. But a lot of what we're doing here, you won't even really write down. You'll just go straight to your answer, and a lot of these steps are just things that you're going to do like kind of a mental checklist. Okay, so let's look at letter B. I already know that my signs are different because of that minus sign at the end. So the first term I know has to multiply to be 5x squared. Well, I only have one choice, right? It has to be 5x times x. All right, and I know the last numbers have to multiply to be 10. So instead of choosing 10 and 1, I'm going to start with 5 and 2 because those are the lowest. But when I choose 5 and 2, I know I can't put the 5 in the first parenthesis because there'd be a common factor. So I have to put the 2 here and the 5 over here. Now, that's not a guarantee it works. This is just the first thing I'm going to try. So in order to check and see if it works, I need to see if the outer and inner give me that middle term of 23. So on the outer, I have negative 25x. And on the inner, I have positive 2x. Okay, so do you see that that gives me negative 23x? But don't I want a positive 23x? Okay, hey, that's no problem. So if you have the right number, in this case the 23, but you only have the sign wrong, right? I want a positive and it's actually negative. That's an easy fix. Don't move any numbers, just switch the signs. So in other words, make this be the plus, and that means I need to make this one over here be the minus. And that will guarantee switch it to be a positive 23. You don't have to recheck it. It will definitely switch it. So now it works. Okay, go to letter C. All right, so I've already got it set up. So I know the first ones have to multiply to be 18. Well, I have 1 and 18, 9 and 2, 6 and 3. We always start with the smallest. So I'm going to start with 6x and 3x. Okay, I know on the other side, it has to multiply and be 3. So my only option is 3 and 1. But do you notice that I can't put 3 in either parenthesis because there'd be a common factor? So what does that mean? Does that mean this whole thing doesn't work? No, what that means is, since I know this has to be a 3 and 1, then that means I can't use the 6x and 3x. So if I can't use 6 and 3, what's my next option? Well, my next one is going to be 9 and 2. But when I choose 9 and 2, I know I can't put the 9 over here with the 3, so I'll put the 2x with the 3 and the 9x over here. So this is my first official try. So let's check and see if it works. On the outside, okay, by the way, I am so sorry. I just looked at the notes I wrote to myself, and I forgot that there was a correction on letter C, that the original problem, let me kind of do a little erasing here. The original problem, that last term right there was supposed to be a minus. I apologize. Can I just change that to a minus? So if that last term was supposed to be a minus, sorry about that. What that's going to change is, that means that instead of my signs being the same, my signs are supposed to be different. Sorry about that. So I'll just make this be a plus and a minus. So sorry. Okay, that doesn't change the 9 and the 3 and the 2. So I still need to check. I need to see if this is going to give me that 25 in the middle. So on the outer, I'm going to have negative 2x. On the inner, I have positive 27. Does that give me negative 25? No, but it gives me positive 25, right? Doesn't that give me positive 25x? So what that means is, since I have 25, I'm going to leave all the numbers where they are. In order to make it be a negative 25, I'll just switch my signs. So that means this one is supposed to be the minus, and this one is supposed to be the plus. And like I said, you don't have to recheck it. It will guarantee switch the signs and make it work. Okay, so let's go to letter D. All right, so this time, the first ones have to multiply to be 5x squared, so no choice. It has to be 5x and x. The last ones have to multiply to be 21. So I could go 21 and 1 or 7 and 3, and we're going to always start with the smaller numbers. That doesn't mean it's going to work. It just means that more often than not, the smaller numbers work instead of the larger numbers. So if I choose 7 and 3, there are no restrictions on where I could put the 7 or the 3. So I'm just literally going to take a guess. So I'll say 7 here and 3 here. Okay, so when I check it, I'm going to have on the outer negative 15 and the inner positive 7. Well, there's no way, I don't even have to do the addition or subtraction. There's no way that's going to equal positive 16. I mean, I know it doesn't. So that means that the 7 and 3 doesn't work here. So does that mean I automatically toss the 7 and 3? Well, no. What about the other order? What if I make the 3 here and the 7 here? Okay, so now I check it. I got to see if that gives me 16 in the middle. So on the outer, I have negative 35x. And on the inner, I have positive 3x. Again, I don't even have to do the math. There's no way that's going to equal 16. So that means that the 3 and 7 doesn't work. So I toss the 3 and 7. And instead of 7 and 3, maybe this time I try the 21 and 1. Okay, so again, there's no restrictions on where the 21 would go or where the 1 would go. So I'm just going to randomly place it. So I'll put 21 here and 1 here. So still I have to check it. So on the outer, I'm going to have negative 5. On the inner, I'm going to have 21. And when you combine those, isn't that going to give you a positive 16, which is what we were looking for? All right, so that means that works. So on that one, that was the first one that we did that we actually had to try a couple different things before it worked. So 1 and 4, 25% actually had more than one option. All of the other ones only had the one option that would work. Okay, so look at letter E. All right, so the first one's to multiply and get 18, 6 and 3, 9 and 2. So the smaller option would be 6x and 3x. Okay, the smallest option to get 12 would be 4 and 3. But again, do you see I can't put the 3 in either place, right? So that means instead of 4 and 3, I'll try 6 and 2. But again, I can't put either the 6 or the 2 in that first parenthesis. And then 12 and 1, again, can't put the 12 in either one. So very quickly, without even writing anything down, I know that since I tried all my options on the 12 and there's nowhere it can go, I know that the first one can't be 6 and 3. It has to be 9 and 2. Okay, so 9x and 2x. All right, so for the 12, I'll start back again with my 4 and 3, but that means the 4 is going to have to go here, and the 3 is going to have to go here. So let's check. On the outer, I have negative 27. On the inner, I have positive 8. And I can tell that that's going to equal negative 19. So this works. Okay. Look at letter F. All right. So again, with the 18, even though lots of times we switched it to 9 and 2, I still need to start with the lowest. So for 18, I'll start with 6x and 3x. Okay. For 8, I would normally start with 4 and 2, but I can't put either one of those over there with the 6. If I did 8 and 1, let's see, the 8 would have to go over here because it would have a common factor in the first parentheses, and then the 1 would go here, but I have to check it. So on the outer, I have negative 48x. On the inner, I have negative 3. Again, I don't even have to do the math. There's no way that's going to give me negative 25. Okay, so since I tried 4 and 2, I tried 1 and 8, didn't work. That means that I'm going to have to switch from 6 and 3 to 9 and 2. So I'll go 9 and 2. So I'll start back over again with the 4 and 2. I can't put either one over there with the 2. So if I did 8 and 1, let's see, the 8 would have to go here because otherwise there'd be a common factor in that second parenthesis. And I'll put the 1 here. So now we check it. On the outer, I have negative 9x. On the inner, I have negative 16x. Does that equal negative 25? It sure does. So that works. Okay. Let's try some more. I just want to drive home all of my little shortcuts. So on letter G, I see 3 terms. Automatically set up my parentheses. That last one is a plus, so they're the same. Then I look over here of plus. So both plus. Now, I could start with my 3 and 2. Something that I notice, and is just standing out to me, this might be something to help you see, that middle term is a 37. That's pretty high when you think about the first is a 6 and the last is a 6. In fact, something I noticed is that 6 times 6 is 36. It makes me think maybe on this one, instead of starting with 2 and 3 for the 6, because if you're multiplying 2 and 3, it's going to be hard to get to a middle term of 37. Maybe I'll start with the 6's. Maybe I'll go 6x and x here. So what that means is to multiply and get 6, yes, I could start with the 2 and the 3, but remember how I said, hey, that middle term is kind of high? So maybe I'll go with 6 and 1, but I know I can't put the 6 over here with this 6. So I'll put the 1 here and the 6 here. Now, no guarantees, I still have to check it. On the outer, I have 36, and the inner, I have 1. Oh yeah, that gives me 37. Okay, so yes, more often than not, it's the smaller numbers, but if you see a really high number in the middle, then maybe you do start with the higher numbers for your factors. Okay, look at letter H. 3 terms, so I go to my 2 parentheses. I see the minus, so I automatically know they're different. Okay, in order to multiply and get x squared, only one choice has to be x and x. All right, so in order to multiply and get 30, gosh, I have lots of options, right? 30 and 1, let's see, 15 and 2, 10 and 3, 6 and 5. Let's see, is that my only options? I think those are the only things that multiply to be 30, right? Now, I can actually plug these in. And let me just show you. Let's say I start with the 6 and 5. If I just, and it doesn't matter which one goes where, if I did like 6 and 5 here, on the outer I'm going to have negative 5. On the inner, I'm going to have positive 6. Because the first term is only x, do you see that when I check my outer and inner, it's just going to be the difference of the 5 and the 6, which is not 6. So think about it. Even if I did 10 and 3, the difference of those would be 7, not 6. If I did 15 and 2, the difference would be 13. So do you see that no matter what I try, it's never going to give me 6 in the middle? And so what did we say? If it doesn't factor, if nothing works, then what do we call it? We would say this is prime. Now that's not going to happen very often. I just wanted to show you that there's no guarantees that it's going to work. Okay, so let's go to letter I. 3 terms, so I set up my 2 parentheses. All right, so let's see, I think we said different signs. In order to multiply and get 10, first thing I'll try is 5x and 2x. Okay, in order to multiply and get 12, I'll start with 4 and 3, but I know that the 4 can't go over there with the 2, so I'll put the 4 here and the 3 here. So when I check it, I'm going to have negative 15x and positive 8. Does that give me the negative 7 in the middle? Sure does. Okay? So you understand when we say to factor, this is the answer. This part down here was just me checking to make sure that my answer works. Okay? Letter J, I see 3 terms, so I automatically set up 2 parentheses. All right, that's a plus, so I know they're the same. I look over here, that tells me they're the same, and they're both minus. Now here's something that might be helpful. You know, normally I say, hey, start with the first term in each. And it really doesn't matter if you start with the first or the last, just one or the other. Something you might want to do, I noticed that in order to multiply and get 12, I have several options. But in order to multiply and get 3, I only have one option. My only choice is 3 and 1. A lot of times when there's only one choice for one of them, I'll put that in first because I know I can't change it. So since I know my only choice is 3 and 1, I'll go ahead and put that down. Now, in order to multiply and get 12, I'll start with 4 and 3, but that means I can't put the 3x over here with the 3, so I would have to put the 4x here and the 3x here. Now that doesn't guarantee it works, so I check it. I'm going to have, on the outer, I'm going to have negative 4. On the inner, I have negative 9. That does not give me the 20 that's in the middle. So that means, but I can't move that 3 and 1, so that means instead of 4 and 3, my next option would be 6 and 2. But again, I can't put the 6 over here with the 3, so I'll put the 2x here and the 6x here so that I get the 12 at the beginning. So let's check it. On the outer, I've got negative 2x. On the inner, I have negative 18. Does that give me the negative 20 in the middle? Yes, it does. So there is my answer. Okay, look at letter K. I see 3 terms. I set up my 2 parentheses. I see the plus, so I know they're the same. I look over here. Oh, they're the same of minus. And you could pull that same trick you did last time. Since the last ones have to multiply and be 2, and there's only one option for that, I could just go ahead and place my 2 and 1. Now, here's something I noticed. There's a 41 in the middle. That's a pretty big number, especially when you think that these numbers are going to be multiplied by 2 and 1. So you could start at 4 and 5 for the 20, or even 10 and 2, but I think I'm going to start with 20, just because I know I've got to get a really high number in the middle. So for the 20x squared, I'll use 20x and 1x, but I can't put the 20 in the first parenthesis, so I'll put the 1x there and the 20x there. So let's check it. On the outer, I have negative 1x. On the inner, I have negative 40x. And doesn't that work? Doesn't that give me the negative 41? Okay. So the things I'm telling you now are just things to help you get better at this factoring quicker, is to start noticing other little subtleties other than just that whole common factor thing. Okay? Last one, I see 3 terms, so I automatically set up my parentheses. The last one is a plus, so I know they're the same. Look over at the first one, so this means they're both plus. Okay, the only way to multiply and get x squared is x times x. And then for 56, gosh, I know 56 and 1, and I know 7 and 8. There's probably some others, but I'm just going to start with 7 and 8 because those are going to be the smallest. So 7 and 8. Does that work? I have 8x And 7x, that does give me the 15, right? So there's my answer. Okay, it's called trial and error for a reason, because sometimes you have to try more than one thing. But if you stick with these little shortcuts, more often than not, it's going to work very quickly. All right, so that is the trial and error. And then you see the homework starts on page 143.